As China continues to press Taiwan, the U.S.-Taiwan ties are in focus. The relation between Taiwan and the United States is unofficial and informal, and is governed by the Taiwan Relations Act. The Taiwan Relations Act is designed to maintain ambiguity and does not state if the USA will or will not intervene militarily if China attacks or invades Taiwan. Under the Act, the U.S. is obligated to sell arms of a defensive character to Taiwan. But certain developments suggest the U.S. is now taking a more assertive stance. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes 5 pointers that indicate the U.S. will defend Taiwan from China. Let's get started. This video is sponsored by War Thunder. If you are, like us, fascinated by military vehicles and technology, I recommend you give War Thunder a try. It's a military vehicle combat game which you can download and play for free on PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One with cross-platform support. It has a huge variety of more than 1,200 playable aircraft, tanks, helicopters, and ships from the 1930s to the 1990s, which you can take to battle on land, in the air, and at sea on more than 80 theaters of war. War Thunder's been kind enough to offer all Defense Updates viewers a special bonus, which will grant you a free premium tank, aircraft, or ship, and 3 days of premium account time for registering using our link in the description below. So take the plunge and join more than 20 million players from around the world. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said on Wednesday that the United States and its allies would take unspecified action if China were to use force to alter the status quo over Taiwan. Blinken was asked at a forum hosted by the New York Times whether the United States would step in to defend Taiwan in the event of an attack by China. He reiterated that Washington's role is to make sure the island has the means to defend itself, as is required under U.S. law, but also added a new dimension, stating that there are many countries, both in the region and beyond, that would see any unilateral action to use force to disrupt the status quo as a significant threat to peace and security, and they too would take action in the event that that happens. Blinken did not say what sort of action he was referring to, but it's evident that the military option is not off the table. U.S. President Joe Biden created a stir last month when he said the United States would come to Taiwan's defense if China attacked. Those remarks appeared to depart from the long-held policy of strategic ambiguity, not making clear how the United States would respond. While the White House said Biden was not signaling a change in policy, some experts see this as the real deal. It's to be noted that the Democratic chairman of the influential House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, has urged the Biden administration to be less ambiguous about what he called a U.S. obligation to defend Taiwan from attack by China. In her interview with CNN, Tsai has acknowledged the presence of U.S. troops in Taiwan. In doing so, Tsai became the first Taiwan president in decades to admit this. Viewers may note that in 1979, when Washington switched formal diplomatic recognition from Taipei to Beijing, the last official U.S. garrison left Taiwan. In 2020, the U.S. military posted and then deleted a video that showed U.S. Army Special Forces training soldiers on the island. In November 2020, Taiwan's Defense Ministry announced and then denied to local media that U.S. troops were training Taiwanese soldiers on the island. The statement from Tsai signals a growing comfort level and trust between the U.S. and Taiwan. Tsai didn't say exactly how many U.S. military personnel are on the island at present, but said it was not as many as people thought. She added, "We have a wide range of cooperation with the U.S. aiming at increasing our defense capability." U.S. Republican lawmakers introduced legislation seeking to provide $2 billion per year and other assistance to bolster Taiwan's defenses as it stands up to Chinese aggression. The legislation will provide $2 billion a year in foreign military financing, U.S. grants and loans that enable countries to purchase weapons and defense equipment produced in the United States through 2032 for the self-ruled island. While the bill is sponsored only by Republicans, support for Taiwan is a rare issue that garners bipartisan backing in the deeply divided Senate and could pass through. A group of U.S. lawmakers landed in Taipei on a Boeing C-40A military plane. The plane subsequently took off for Okinawa after a brief stay at the airport. Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed the visit and said the trip was arranged by the American Institute in Taiwan, the de facto U.S. embassy in Taipei. It did not disclose the names of the lawmakers involved in the visit, nor their itinerary. This is not the first time in recent months that U.S. lawmakers are visiting Taiwan in military planes. In July, a U.S. Air Force aircraft made a brief, unannounced stop at an airport in central Taipei in Taiwan. The C-146A Wolfhound landed just days after Sandra Audkirk arrived to take up a position as director of the American Institute in Taiwan, hinting at stronger ties. Earlier, a bipartisan team, including Democrats Tammy Duckworth, Christopher Coons, and Republican Dan Sullivan, visited Taipei for around 3 hours, where they met President Tsai Ing-wen and announced the donation of 750,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses for the island. The visit carried a message since the senators traveled on a U.S. Air Force C-17 Globemaster III strategic transport aircraft rather than an unmarked private jet, as is generally the case for senior U.S. visitors. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this. Hit the like button if you find the video interesting, and kindly provide your feedback in the comment section. This will help us improve.